Okay.
It was May 11th.
May 11th. Okay, the Public Works Committee meeting comes to order. Reading the affidavit and posting. This was posted accurately per Wisconsin state law. And roll call. Everybody's here except Mike Schwab. So pledge of allegiance, prayer. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, everybody saw the consent agenda? Hey, Mike. Hello. The consent agenda, I need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Hartwig, second by Supervisor Krieger Gunrum. Then vote. All ayes? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, consent agenda passes. And then discussion items. Scott, is there something you would like to talk about in any of the discussion items?
Certainly. First and foremost, you have the transit ridership report, and it was a last minute addition. One thing that we did add to it, a little bit different than normal, we gave you a little trend charts as well to kind of give you a feel for what that looks like. But then more importantly, if you look at the one thing that Joy, our transit manager, pointed out was the ridership by the day of the week. If you look at the way at the bottom of that document for the ridership trend charts, you'll see that our ridership is actually higher Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday than it is Thursday, Friday. We talked a lot over the last several months of the hybrid model, people going back to work, right? And what does that look like, right? So now it's kind of fleshing itself out a little bit where it looks like, again, just anecdotally looking at our data and our data only. There's no study, we haven't talked to anybody, but it certainly looks like that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are a higher peak than it is on Thursday and certainly on Fridays, where maybe they're working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and more people taking off on Friday. So we just, I think it was a great observation by Joy to recognize that and to kind of point that out. And then right above that, the graphical representation to kind of see where ridership is. We say kind of, and graphs can be misconstrued too based on how you do the axes, but you can see that, 1800 and 1876 in March, April went up to 1914, now we're up to 2007. So you tell it's creeping up. Again, that's what we want to show you the pre-pandemic numbers too, with the year of 2020, that's around 6655, and now we're kind of working our way back up there. It may be up there, I should say, inching way back up. So that was what we kind of wanted to point out for the ridership report that you see there. Any questions on the ridership report?
Anybody?
Yeah, we'll be talking more transit in the months to come.
Yeah.
No doubt. Especially the commuter express for certain.
Okay.
The next on your agenda is the County Highway S, County Highway R, intersection improvement. Back on May 26th, we had a public information meeting. I believe all of you were present at that meeting, and we had quite a great turnout of the County Board of Supervisors at that particular meeting. And we sent out 72 letters to businesses and residents out there. And I didn't tally them up, but it was like 15 to 20 that were there that were not County Board Supervisors or Town of Allenton, Addison's going to be representatives, or staff or engineering firms. So not a great turnout, but a turnout nonetheless. Also in your packet, you'll see that every comment that we received was submitted in your packet as well. We received several that day. There was one anonymous one. We did include that as well. And then you'll see that on your desk in front of you was also one that we received today via email. I think it's better to include all the comments, even though our due date was June 6th. We made it very clear at the meeting too that our meeting was today. So sometimes people get a little bit confused on dates and stuff like that. So we figured we'd include that and show that to you as well. Also in your packet is the basically kind of a tabulation, if you will, and also on your desk. Looks like a spreadsheet that engineers like to do to show you the respondents. Again, their comment sheets have more comments. I didn't write down every comment on that sheet, but it kind of gave their preferred option, and then as well as their least liked options as well. Kind of give you a better feel for that. And down below, I just tabulated that. Again, they could write down one comment, one they didn't like, one they liked the least, or they liked the least, whatever it was. And so basically, it's just straight numbers. It's no analysis, no in-depth looking at it, just kind of a raw numbers. Yep, saying that 8 preferred option, alternate A, 4 for B, 3, 5 for C, and then 4 for D, 0 for E, and 1 for F, and then like the least again, 3, 6, 5, 5, 6, and 4 for those particular alternates that are out there. So we did go through at that meeting. I don't know if you want me to go through all the alternates again, but I'm sure you're all familiar with them, and they were in your packet as well. So rather than rehashing that, there was another alternate that just came in before the meeting, and in front of you is a black and white drawing of another alternate. Very similar to alternate A, and it is drawn on alternate A, and I do appreciate that. And this is drawn by Greg Geller, who's in the audience. He's actually the farmer that owns the old farmstead along Highway S, which is now a rental property, and the main farm is down County Highway R, about a half mile from Highway S on the west side of the roadway. But he does own all the farm fields that are between 175 and R, between R and S, and again between S and 175 is the ownership that he has there. The difference between this one and the ones that we did for Highway A is one is showing a turn lane if you're traveling eastbound on Highway S, a separate turn lane to go southbound. That is something our engineering firms always look at as far as turn lanes. If you remember at the public information meeting, they had a little side map there with all the turning movements.
Yep.
And so that turning movements helps decide if they actually need a turn lane there or not, based on how many people are making that right-hand turn, how many people are going straight, how many people are going left, and what's their delay time at each one of those. It can be a good thing and a bad thing, because sometimes you have two cars that are next to each other, and one car that wants to turn to the right and go south is maybe looking through, if you're not at perfect 90, is looking through the other car. So it's one thing, you got to look at all the geometrics to make sure that makes sense, but certainly an option. This one also shows it going right through the house. I'm assuming that was somewhat intentional.
No,
you know it's going through the house anyway.
Well, we're trying to keep both intersections square.
Right.
And put enough on there that it would slow the traffic down coming off 175 also.
Right.
Because that's a large complaint from the neighbors there. And just to give you, I put that out there at the very first, even with the W project, I put that out there. I have no sentimental value to those buildings. And currently they're up for sale. Okay. I just had a meeting with Josh also, and he said, I'm in favor of that.
So we'll label that alternate G, EFG, so please put that down. So what you have in front of you then is alternates A through G. This is a discussion item, and we certainly would be willing to, next month we'd be looking at you to act on that agenda item. Mm-hmm. And so right now we're certainly open up to any discussion that you may have on any of those alternates.
Does anybody have any opinion as to which direction they'd like to go, Jeff?
I'm not gonna go there yet, but do you have a real rough cost of each of these options? I know we can't get the safety numbers yet till the engineers, till we ask specifically, but.
Yes, I can pull those up in a second here, Chairman.
And then you'd have to give a rough estimate what G would cost too. Of course, that would factor in
Buildings.
buying the buildings. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put on my real estate hat, realtor hat, here in a second and do my best to see what that looks like. So the estimates, again, these are, I want to make sure you understand, these are really ballpark numbers. We just got our bids in from our asphalt. So we'll see how these hold up. So we're going to give you ranges. Option A, I'll just use 1.2 million to 1.7 million. So you don't have to write out all the decimal points or all the zeros. So A 1.2 to 1.7, B 3.1 to 3.6, C 2.1 to 2.6, and D 2.3 to 2.8.
E is nothing.
E and F, E was nothing, and, excuse me. So the other ones were more minimal costs, and it did seem like there was a lot of interest in those, so we didn't ask the engineering firm to give us a ballpark on those, because it just didn't seem I was interested in. And so again, I'll go through those really quick. A 1.2 to 1.7, B 3.1 to 3.6, C 2.1 to 2.6, and D 2.3 to 2.8. I would venture a guess that this, you probably go talking 1.6 to 2.1 for option G, adding on roughly 400,000. I really don't know what a older farmhouse with outbuildings and a barn go for, but I would imagine in the Slinger School District. I'm literally throwing a dart at the board and saying 400,000 once you throw it all in together. But I want to make sure I'm talking to the person behind me. That's not an offer. That's
Sorry to put you on the spot.
truly just an estimate. It certainly could be higher, could be lower.
Right.
Than that. But just throwing a number out there.
And all of these were, the designs were 30% engineering, so there's a lot of.
No, not even quite 30%, Chairman. No, just real high level conceptual. If you're looking at more tight numbers, that you would ask us to look at several options. Certainly, if you want us to look at all of them, we certainly can again. They would take one or two of those plant sets, hopefully, and get them a little more, run some cross sections through there, know how much fill's got to go in there, all that kind of stuff. So these are just real high level, just sketch kind of back and napkin going, new roadway out in the, there's 1 point whatever per mile or a million a mile, and you got this many much roadway, and that's how you do it. So these are really just real ballpark numbers. That's why you see it's a $500,000 range in each of them.
And we can only hope that the asphalt prices come down with fuel.
As for fuel, all that stuff, right? They
Sure.
certainly slide down a little bit, but you're also talking, it might be another 2 years before you construct. So your guess is as good as mine.
Right.
Scott, I think the gentleman behind wants to ask a question or something.
One of the things about some of the other alternatives versus.
No, he would have to be recognized by the chair if he wants to speak or not.
Okay.
Correct. Correct.
I want to ask you a question. Can I ask you a question?
You can ask.
The chair has to give you permission to have him recognized.
John?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Sure.
On this item A, this seems to be the cheapest one. Will this be the safest one?
Safety is always in the eye of the beholder. And so when we talk about safety, if you want it the safest, we could drop the speed limit down to 10 miles an hour would be the safest. Right? And put four-way stops and stop signs everywhere and roundabouts everywhere. So safety is always in the eye of the beholder. And so we also, as engineers, we have to balance safety between the traveling public and their need to get from point A to point B. So when we talk about safety, that's why we did our intersection safety analysis. And so we looked at that saying, how does this rate to other intersections, right? And so we did that analysis here, right, where this was the ninth intersection if you throw it into ours, right? But in different categories, right? Crash rate, crash severity, and the total number of crashes. So different categories, it slides in and up different ways. So when we talk about safety, it's what are you looking for? Because could be more crashes in a roundabout, for instance, but they're lower speed, typically speaking. So what the state DOT does, they have what's called crash reduction factors. So if you have a skew angle and you change it to 90 degrees, they'll say it'll reduce the accidents by 80% or whatever their number is, right? That's something we could look at for all of these. And so they look at that going, okay, if it's not a 90, but it's a 70 degree, maybe instead of 80% reduction, maybe you only get 60% reduction, right? We look over the thing going, okay, that reduces it by one crash over 5 years. Potentially, everything is just engineering and best bet. So it depends what you mean by safety, which crash rate, number of crashes, all that kind of stuff. Definitely a roundabout will, typically speaking, doesn't have too many fatalities in it, right? When you're looking at that, because of generally speaking, they go slow. But then again, sometimes if people are under the influence of something like that, it could be dangerous because it might go right through and it's really T-bone. So you just never know what's out there. So we can certainly have them run numbers to see what the crash reduction factor would be on certain designs that you so select. And you can kind of tell for yourself how many crashes they think that they'll be reduced by. But there's other factors who have to go into that, and road conditions and inattentive driving and people. So as best as we can design one, there's always a way to make a mistake in an intersection. So I don't know if that answers your question, if I danced around it too much.
Well, there's another thing. I understand because there's such a gradual coming off 175 and the signal lights don't cancel. And that's a big problem right now.
Actually, I don't think it's a problem at all. If that's why I included all the crash reports into there. Of all the crashes at the intersection, only one was someone traveling, southbound, where that might have been an issue. If you look at all the other crashes, it's just not there. So that's why we put the crash reports. When we look at that, where do I think that the turn signal does not cancel out? 100%. I do think so. Are there a lot of probably near misses because of that? Oh, yes, right? People are, but hopefully people are using their driving sense, right? When you're looking to the left, right, left, and seeing is that person slowing down or not to make the turn. And fortunately up here, because it's been that way for many, many years, a lot of local people are in Highway S, they realize that the turn signals aren't turning off. And so there isn't a lot of crashes that are actually because of that. Not one of the crashes that happened mentioned that the turn signal didn't turn off. So, but do I think it's a problem? Yes. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. I think it's an issue. I think it's something we should hopefully address, but I don't think it's leading to a lot of crashes at that particular site. Probably a lot of near misses. But when you look at the crash data, we included all those going, that's 10 years of data going, only one crash in that direction, that it might have been an issue. The officer didn't write it down as they didn't turn the turn signal off. So 10 years of data is a lot of data. Mm-hmm. So again, I think it's a reality out there. I really do. I'm not dismissing it, but I don't think it's the leading cause of crashes there. If you look at all the crashes that are happening there.
Okay. Any further questions? Jeff?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Looking at the traffic volumes, when you look at S and 175, the vast majority of all cars go straight through either way. But coming on S eastbound, there are quite a few cars in the AM and not in the PM, which is weird, that turn right. So do any of the engineering plans put a acceleration, an extra lane there for the people turning right to accelerate in? Or is that not warranted?
I don't think they've gone to that level of detail to look at those yet, Chairman Schleif. That's one thing they'd look at a little bit more in depth. Like I said, all the turn lanes and all that kind of stuff.
Further design.
Looking into the design. And certainly something, if you have an option, you want to see what that would look like, I'm sure between now and the next month, they could look at that and saying, yes, here would need a turn lane, here would not need a turn lane, or acceleration lane. But those are traveling on, on S going east, going south, and 75 would have it like an acceleration lane going up on most of the designs that were there.
It's hard for this committee to, pick one, like even the new G, if we're leaning towards A, well then look at G, and if you change the angle from 70 degrees or whatever to 90 degrees, we have this different safety factor, but we have additional cost. We have to balance that. So, I don't know. I guess we ask those questions.
Lois?
So I'm looking at A and at 175 and R. What has really changed on that to what it is today?
On A, so at 175 and R, way at the north end.
At yeah.
Way at the north end there, right? Top of the screen.
Correct.
Yep. So the biggest improvement there or change would be that people that are traveling southbound on 175, instead of going that off ramp maneuver, which does not turn the turn signal off, they would be more into a traditional turn lane, right? They'd have to go into a turn lane slow down and make more of a, it's not quite a 90-degree turn, but make more of a 90-degree turn. That would then in turn turn our turn signal off. So that's the biggest benefit for option A up at R 175 is it would cancel out that turn signal. But also at the same time, we would, between S and 175, make sure that you could see all the way down to there. There's a little hump in the road right there, so you could see traffic coming all the way up. So the sight distance would be improved at one time too. You can't see that because it's just a 2D drawing, but they would improve that so you can actually see from S basically all the way up to the intersection of 175 and R. But that gets rid of that cancellation.
And it slows down the traffic, slows down anybody
Yes,
coming.
you're making more of a right-hand turn than you are going off and basically an off ramp.
So,
You could definitely go highway speeds on a current configuration.
okay, so you're gonna make a right-hand turn and then you're gonna kind of veer.
Yep, you're right. You're gonna be right-hand lane and then go right back to the left a little bit. And again, they gotta put all the truck turning movements on to make sure that the trucks can turn and stuff like that, which means when you make the radius wider for the truck, it means the cars go a little bit faster, right? So you understand that they're not gonna be coming to a complete 90-degree and turning and stop. They'll be going slower, probably in that 15 to 20 mile an hour range. But they'll definitely not be going 55 plus miles an hour.
It'll definitely slow them down just to how much.
Right. It's one thing that you could actually go out there and do today, as long as someone's not tailgating you, you can certainly do that and make that maneuver because that island that's right
there, yeah.
is there right now. You could certainly try it for yourself and see what that would be told for next meeting, see what that would do.
And then I wanted to ask, I guess I want to know, what do the people who live in this area, what were their choices? And so, we have their names.
I can point you to them. So I'm going to use option A as the one, because then if we're all on the same page. Donna Scott, I believe, lives in the Highway S between 175 and R, the middle driveway or the right driveway right across from the farmstead.
Yes, oh yeah.
And she's the one who likes B and C.
Correct.
Because she wants a cul-de-sac.
Oh, sure.
And
Understood.
Mr. and Mrs. Napier live on the northeast corner of S and R. So the second driveway to your left or to the west of that one. So they live on the corner property there. So those are the two that live in that immediate area. Jeff Krebs does not live in here, I do not believe. No. Obviously, you got Ellen and Garrett Geller. Again, they don't live there, but they own the property to the south, southwest and west of the area. Randy Marquardt, you all know.
Do they own the property, just a quick question, do they own the property north of S and south of S?
Yes, the Gellers, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Basically, all the farm fields you see between 175 and R and S and 175, like in a lighter tan color, that's all owned by the Gellers and farmed by the Gellers. You don't mind that, right? No. And August Howell, he lived up in the subdivision in the upper right-hand corner, I believe. Ben Gehring lives on Highway S to the west, not the first house you see. He's not the first house, he's the second house, so just on the edge of the screen on Highway S. Yeah. Steve Krebs lives on Highway W, near 175, so off the bottom right-hand corner. And Ann and Dave Weniger live along 175, right where Highway W is, coming across. Leroy and Gehring live on Highway R, just south of Highway K. Ron Knob lives in Allenton. And Jeff Infault is the fire chief for St. Lawrence Fire Department, and he lives off of Highway K west of Highway R. Turtle Road, technically, yes.
So the people who live on 175 there, where A would affect they didn't respond in any way? Okay.
So the tavern did not respond. There's a house, it's still inside that triangle, did not respond. And the one north of 175 did not
Did
respond.
not respond. Okay. I believe they were at the meeting though.
I know the ones that were southeast of 175 and S were at the meeting, Oyster Sacks.
Okay.
Long driveway to turn around.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
They were at the meeting, but
No further questions? Are we all good?
are there any you want us to look at further in depth to bring back to you next time?
Well, I personally like A. That's why I was asking if anybody else has any opinions.
We're looking for a consensus. Mine is A as well.
I think A is the most practical, both from without absorbing much land and most economical. It just makes the most sense. Why do more than we
what's
need to? We can
necessary.
always change more in the future, but this is a good first step.
I agree.
I agree with Mike. We won't be taking a lot of farmland and stuff. So, and it's price for the taxpayers, what it's gonna cost. I just think, item A is one that we should look at.
I like C. I really like B, but I think it's cost prohibitive, and if there's a possibility it will come down in the future. But B and C are the most alike. And I thought that B was the most safe, just looking at all of the radiuses. And so that's why I liked C, mostly because it solves all of the issues. And if I look at C, it's like, not that it mattered to me, but it's 5 like it and 5 really hate it. So, but, yeah, I just thought C was the one that had the most safety in mind for the best price.
And I guess I would correct mine and say either option A or G since they're so similar, but that gives you more options to change. If you like option C, would G be better because it also does move that intersection to more of a 90-degree angle, like you were looking at C?
Yeah, G is certainly better than A, in my opinion. I don't know what happens with the farm there. We'd be taking it? It's actually a business right now.
It's a rental property, right? You're talking about the building?
Yeah, the building there.
Yeah, it's a rental property now, and he had stated that he would be willing to sell that.
Oh, okay.
It sounded as though it's for sale now, right? Oh.
Or being considered, yeah. I believe
I mean,
so.
this is a very rough design, high level design. If that intersection can be, when it's get looked at in A, if A is the option, and you can do that without taking that farm, I guess that's just my thoughts on it versus taking the farm and option G over A.
Okay, are we good with everything then? Jeff?
I would also say either A or G. But the drawing doesn't take into account, we'd have to take a little bit more land north of this. So I guess I'm interested in the engineers providing some difference, safety factor difference between those two before we make a final decision. Is that
I would agree.
agreeable to everybody?
I would agree. Everybody's good? Seeing no further discussion on that, we can go to transit. Well, transit merger is the one that's,
You can, just mention that as well.
we're gonna wait on Ozaki. Or Ozaki might have said no, but we're gonna pass on that for now.
So just mention what's on the,
Agenda based on the discussion that Ozaki County was taking up. They did not take it up, so this is nothing for us to discuss at this time. Okay, then transit management?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if those of you that were here may recall, those who are not, we have a shared transit manager, which is Joy, that manages both the Ozaki County Transit and Washington County Transit. That position was created on the auspices of merging the two together, right? Merging the two transit systems together under one manager and how to make that happen. When we were going through the process of merging, it just never came to fruition. Ozaukee County was not willing to merge. I can say they talked about it very briefly today, and they still don't want to merge the whole services together. So that's kind of off the table for now. But unfortunately, that with only one person managing both things, there's so many differences between the two systems. Even the reporting is different, everything else, because of the way that Ozaukee County's transit has their program and we have our program. So what we're looking for from you, and Ozaukee County took this matter up just by happenstance. Their meetings are Thursday mornings, so just before ours. They took this up, and again, you'll see a couple options that were in your report. And they took up the option or preferred the option that would keep the shared manager position between the two counties. And I do agree with that. That does have a lot of value in it to have the merged position, but also to add a second person to help with a lot of the day-to-day activities that are going on. We have a lot of high-end stuff going on in our county. The feds just announced they're doing an audit of our system because of all the CARES and ARPA funds and all that kind of stuff, which is out of the blue. And Ozaukee County is doing what's called a triennial review. It's again, every 3 years they do an in-depth audit of your system. And so one person to manage all of that, plus we want them to look at our Computer Express system, and they're doing the same kind of thing in Ozaukee County where there's just not enough bandwidth there for one person to properly handle it all. So both myself and the Highway Commissioner from Ozaukee County recognize that and are bringing that forward to you. There was a part-time person doing that out of their clerk's office in Ozaukee County. Again, Joy is officially an Ozaukee County employee. We pay Ozaukee County for half of her salary and benefits and stuff like that. So we'll be looking at continuing that on with a secondary person underneath Joy to help with a lot of those daily tasks and reportings and phone calls from people and all that kind of stuff that happen on that day-to-day basis, dealing with our shared ride taxi system and getting stuff up and running like our new routing software and with that. It's just too much of a burden for one person. And I want to say thank you to Joy for sticking with it and managing it these last several months without that other staff person and doing what she does for not just our county, but Ozaukee County as well. So what we'll be looking for, again, is a consensus to kind of go down that route of that option to have a secondary person on board. We would then again fund half of that position. We'd work with Ozaukee County to see what that looks like. But again, being an Ozaukee County position, we'd be paying for roughly half that salary. Whether they start that now or go through their budget process, that's really on Ozaukee County's end to get that done and hopefully in a very timely manner.
So we would share equally with Ozaukee County for both positions?
Yes, I don't believe there's a way to split it out at 54, 60, and all that kind of stuff. It's just not worth the effort to pull that down. I trust that Joy and the reports that she does that she's spending half of our time in our county, and some weeks will be more one way and next week the other way. Absolutely. This training review is going to get up a lot of our time in Ozaukee County. But in a couple of years, we're going to get a training review ourselves and taking more time up in our county. So I don't have any issues at all with a 50-50 split if that's what Ozaukee County would agree to.
And what if Ozaukee County says no to that too?
Yes.
I don't think they will. I think they realize that it's a pretty much even split between the two counties.
Gotcha.
The only conversation would be if they decide to lose their Commuter Express, for instance. Again, you're going to have that opportunity later this year to discuss what that looks like. And so that might cause something to be more of a 60-40 split or something like that if we decide to, depending on how that looks, right? It's just that both Commuter Expresses in both counties are really kind of up in the air right now. It's just really hard to pin down what that looks like. Again, if we terminated ours altogether and they did some kind of hybrid, then we would be the ones asking for a little bit of reduction.
Right.
I just think both counties right now are in that kind of a holding pattern. And part of that is just the bandwidth between myself and the commissioner over there and Joy looking at the different options and waiting on SewerPack to get us those options.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question.
Doug?
Is there a benefit to Washington County having their own And instead of doing two people splitting in 50%, just having our own and them having their own and cutting ties that way.
I think the one thing I like about it is having someone that has capabilities doing kind of the day-to-day stuff, the mundane stuff, the reporting and stuff like that, and having someone more at a higher level actually helping us with a lot of the planning stuff that we've got going on over the next 3 years and really looking at it. So I think there's value, a lot of value in that, having someone that is truly designated to looking at the big picture and not into the weeds every day and not having time to get their head above the weeds, so to speak, and kind of look around, seeing what's going on. So as I do think that when we look at cost-wise, the cost is probably going to be very similar. Maybe there's a little bit of cost savings by having, a higher level person, a person underneath there, maybe a little bit of cost savings from that sense. So from that standpoint, maybe a little cost savings by having it with the two people being merged. But I think there's a lot of value of how do they do things over there? How do we do things over here? And are there ways to improve it and having a little more clout when they go to the conferences going on now? Not a measure of one, small one. Now it's a little more clout when they go to those conferences and stuff like that too. So I think there's good value in it. Maybe a little bit of a cost savings. But
Sorry, the two heads are better than one when you get two heads.
right. I mean, then there's that redundancy factor of at some point, Joy's probably going to retire in her career. I'm sure she'd like to. And so it gives that if Joy's on vacation, there's someone there to answer those questions and calls, right?
Sure.
Versus if it's over here, if Joy's our only transit manager and something happens or she moves on, we're kind of starting over from scratch. At least here, you might have a little more of succession planning going on. Someone that can pick up some of that slack when she's on vacation or decides to retire. You got someone that's not coming in from knowing nothing about transit or from a different program. At least has some knowledge. So I think there's some value in that as well to share that position.
Okay.
I just think it's important to have both people know everything about both counties rather than just one county versus the other. And that way they can, like you said, they can share their work back and forth. And that to me seems
Yeah,
really.
vacation times.
Oh, sure.
Sick times, you always got somebody to
Exactly.
fill in the spot.
Right. If you're only concentrating on your county and you don't know what's going on in the other county, it doesn't seem like they're working together,
Right.
even if they're in the same room.
Any further questions?
Does, we don't need to take action on this? Because this is something,
Just the general consensus again.
because the department can do that, it's in the budget, doesn't have to go to the board. Okay.
Washington County's not asking for another full-time position. And the funds are there to make it happen. So
Good.
Do we have a census on that? Or Doug, you have a question?
If there's no appetite to merge, why is there an appetite, I guess I'll say, to their position? I don't understand if we're gonna run two separate counties, why this, I guess?
but I think it comes into play with, in a couple of seconds, you're going to be, not a couple of seconds, but hopefully seconds, but minutes, talk about our cross-county trips as well. And so having one person that understands in-depthly both systems and how that works, I think will help us navigate that if you so decide to keep that cross-county, trips going. There's that really adds value to the shared position because it's not us and them, it's me. Joy, kind of helping and making those decisions and stuff and getting those phone calls from either resident saying, pointing her finger later on Ozaki, and now Ozaki pointing her finger at us with that shared ride system if something isn't going right. We have nobody else but to look for, but to one person. So again, that with the succession plan and when someone's on vacation, that I certainly, when we had our transit manager, I wanted to let you know that I was at the highway department. We had our own transit manager, and when that person was on vacation out, it was me answering the phones. It was me getting the tickets to people that were coming to the door to get those. And sometimes I was able to help them, and sometimes I say, I'm sorry, but you got to wait for me. I don't know the system well enough to do that because there was no backup. It was just me. We certainly help what we can, but my knowledge of transit down to the details of is somewhat limited. And having that other second person, I think, would be very beneficial.
Good with that?
Sure.
Okay. We have a
One last question, is Joy now, and would the new person be centered here or split time between here and Ozaki County, or where is the actual physical office?
That's yet to be determined. My guess would be it'd be housed in Ozaki County. They have actual true transit building. You know, one of the things that we do differently. I would imagine that person would be housed mostly in Ozaki County and come over here very rarely. And most likely just on occasions when Joy is out or something like that, most likely housed over there. We haven't gone to that level of detail, but that would be my guesstimation. It also depends on who that is and where they live.
Yep.
If they live in West Bend, they might want to work out of Washington County versus.
Find an office somewhere here.
Right.
So, yeah, there's some details in the weeds there, but I
Right.
want to go over
Right.
that. This-
Okay. Do we have a census? And everybody think we should move forward with this? Yeah.
I think it makes sense to me.
I don't have an official vote.
Okay,
No, I'm in agreement, yeah.
you're in
I
agreement?
mean, we're just in a discussion right here.
Sure. Sure, Bob.
I'm good with that too.
Doug,
I'm gonna say that I'm not for it.
you're not for it? I'm okay to move forward with it for now and see how it works. Like I say, we're gonna have more discussions in the future as far as what we keep going with and what we don't, so.
Doug, if you, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but is it your understanding or you just think it would be better just to have one person?
I guess I'm a lot more familiar with this transit stuff than probably anybody at this table because I oversee another transit system. And I don't know what the date, because those that don't know about it, there's a third party that runs this service. So I don't know what two people would do in this position, and maybe I don't have enough details on that to make that decision, but with not wanting to merge, that's another reason why. I don't know why we'd want to jump in and do another shared position. I guess that was my two biggest reasons. Maybe I don't have enough information.
Do you share Mr. Schmidt's perspective that the cross-county thing is enough to justify it, or do you not see that as a big enough factor?
Well, I don't know how those, as far as, I guess I'm a little confused on that question. I mean, one county dispatches and the other county dispatches are completely separate rides. They just ride into the other county, if I'm correct.
Right now, we're working on, I think, just contact one dispatcher to get both rides set up. We're just waiting on the computer software to get it straightened out.
So one dispatcher for both counties?
Eventually, yes, that's what we're gonna get. Well, we want one dispatcher. Each county has its own dispatcher still.
Yeah.
They can call either county to set up the cross-county rides. So Washington County's a lot further along than that right now. Our staff over there at STS is in Washington County is a lot better at doing that than the current staff over at Ozaki County to set up those rides that go across county and back. So eventually Ozaki County will get there to make that happen.
One more question. So does this position also have something to do with the shared taxi ride?
Yeah, they'd be managing both the shared ride taxi for
Okay.
Washington and Ozaki County, as well as the current commuter expresses.
Okay.
The catch with all this is what happens to Commuter Express. Because if I can ask Joy, how much of your job is Commuter Express and how much is shared ride taxi?
So yeah, the Commuter Express itself does not take a lot of time because it is an out-of-the-box contract. So there's really not a lot right now that we're doing with the Commuter Express in either county. So
If we go to the hybrid approach,
right. So the issue is though, in both counties, looking at the Commuter Express, looking at further ways to streamline cross-county service, there are 3 to 4 major change initiatives and major projects that are being discussed between both counties to be implemented in the next 3 years. So splitting up the position gives one person more time to work really specifically on some of these change initiatives and projects, while the continuous auditing, and it's at the grant programs in each county get audited every single year. The continuous reporting, the continuous day-to-day management is still being done, and working together to be accountable for the compliance issues.
That's the catch, all the paperwork.
Plus, and correct me if I'm wrong, plus you're thinking one person is going to do more high-level things, another person's going to do less. So it kind of splits the work up in a fashion that makes sense, so that you don't have each county having to have one person that does everything. Sort of like, you want to have in a hospital setting, you don't want your nurses to be doing things that are at their level, but sometimes you have to if you only have one in that area. So that if you have two, they can split up the work better than two nurses doing all the work. You know what I'm saying? I'm maybe not explaining that really well.
And we're paying for half.
And we're paying for
We're paying
half.
for half for two heads versus, like Scott said, if we have our own management here, Scott or one of his staff have to take up the time to take care of the daily operations if they're on vacation or sick. So that's where the problem lies.
But what are those daily operations, I guess, that a transit manager in the county would do? Do you know what those are? I mean, do we know what those are?
You said the auditing was most of it, right? And then,
But on a daily basis, a daily operation, because they're contracted with a third party for the daily operation of the service. So what do we do as for instance, I'm not pointing you out,
Yeah, it's
Joy, but it's like on a daily basis, if you're sick or something, the operation's not gonna shut down because we do have that third party that runs the operation. They take the calls, they dispatch, they do that. So I don't know if everybody knows that, how that works, but as far as the day-to-day stuff.
Right, so there is the contractor does do the operations. The operations absolutely do not stop if they take a day off. So the bus would still run, the taxi still runs. Things that come to me daily include escalations of problems and issues, and issues with compliance that come up, billing. Those are all things that again, keeping on the reports. The reporting is a really big ongoing thing, to keep on top of, and procurements.
Right. For instance, we just met yesterday to talk about all the van purchases and vehicle purchases and stuff like that. And it's more in depth than that because it's different grant money, right? So which grant monies come first, which one comes second, right? And it's going back to STS and talking to them, okay, how many minivans do you need? How many bariatric vehicles do you need? How many minibuses do you need? In that minibus, do you want 7 passengers and 7 ambulatory and 1 wheelchair? Do you want 5 ambulatory and 2 wheelchair, right? It's all that kind of stuff going back and forth day to day that you got to go through. The procuring of the video cameras for the buses, right? You got to go out there and figure out, okay, which cameras are best. So you're contacting other agencies saying, okay, what cameras do you use? And then you got to go back and forth and you got to go to bid for those and prepare bid documents for them. So it's all that kind of, which doesn't seem like day to day and stuff, but it's all that stuff that we keep doing, that all those projects that just keep popping up that we had to manage. If we do that, but yes, the day to day that at Coach USA, if one of their bus drivers doesn't show up, do they call Joy? No. Coach USA calls somebody else up to make sure their buses are running that day. But if that bus is late by 10 minutes, there are 2 or 3 people that are calling Joy up and letting her know that the bus didn't work or the application was working today and they want a response and they don't want a response from Coach USA. They want a response from people that are running the program. So it's that kind of stuff that is happening out there and kind of being an intermediary between contracting services and the county, right? To make sure that we're doing what we need to do to make sure that those people are getting to where they need to go.
And you had said before that Ozaukee County was looking to do the same thing. They're having the same problems, obviously, because you run both counties. So they're in favor of this as well, or you're hoping they'll be in favor of this?
Yeah, they met, we talked about it this morning.
Okay.
So yeah, they were in favor of it.
Are there ridership trends following ours as well? I would assume so.
Their bus is worse, if you can believe that. The commuter bus is actually worse there, and the shared ride taxi is holding steady. Yeah, so both counties are about 75 to 80% of ridership pre-pandemic.
Any more questions, Doug?
No, and I don't mean to demeanor Joy's day-to-day responsibilities by no means. It's just, I'm trying to bring a little bit of light to the comment that was made that was, if you're gone, somebody can step in your shoes for that day. I think it's misunderstood as far as what Joy does day-to-day for the service itself. You know, it's not, they're not calling her to get rides and tickets or whatever. It's a little, I think some interpreted, so. By no means I was demeaning, you're very important. I'm not.
I can't just say, one more thing is, we are in that point of transition and change, with the services in both counties, and both counties are looking for better ways to do regional transportation. When we go through that cycle of change and the change is over, or we're ready to just run it straight, well, I think that would be another time to look at, can one person do it? And the answer would most likely be yes. And, that would be just fine if you're just running the programs. In this transition period, in this time of change, it would be beneficial to have two.
No, again, it's my opinion that we would move forward with it, and we can always revisit, which we're going to revisit many things coming up in the near future to make more adjustments as needed. Understood? Anybody else? Are we good with that? And we can set highway tour date.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So typically in the past, we've done a highway tour. But generally speaking, take the minivan around, go to a couple of our construction sites, but more importantly, look at the products coming in the future, right? So you kind of get a feel for what those look like, right? So if you're looking at our Highway M project coming up or our Highway P project coming up, to kind of what's coming on the horizon as well, not just what we're doing today, but what's coming up. So when that stuff comes to you as an agenda item, you kind of have a good feel for what that is. Generally speaking, it's a couple hours we spend out there on the roadway. I'll drive the minivan, we go out. So what we're really looking for today, is there any dates that you're looking for? It certainly could be, in the evening if you so desire, a Saturday if you so desire, early in the morning. It really doesn't matter to me what your purview is. I know some of you have other jobs, so during the midday probably doesn't work as well, but certainly early morning, after your work hours or a weekend is certainly open to any dates that you may have.
Is it possible, I know when we've had other items come up, they send out an email with like a scheduler on it where people could pick and maybe put a couple dates on there?
Can do a doable for you guys.
Would that be possible if we could?
That'd be good.
Kathy, Deb?
Let's do that and then see if we can't narrow down a time.
Okay.
Because I think everybody's going to come up with a different date today and.
But is there at least an idea of a time you'd like, maybe prefer like early mornings during the week, a weekend, or later in like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening? Just to kind of, so Mike and I know what to kind of start throwing at you a little bit.
Sure. I mean, again, afternoons are always best for me, but I don't know what your schedule works best for you. So speak up or
Or we'll just throw some dates.
Or we'll just throw some dates at us and.
Well, I mean, I know Mike and Doug route, Mike and Doug work day jobs, so.
I can make whatever work. Doesn't matter, but I mean, the afternoons are fine too.
Yeah, after 4:30 is best for me.
Or evening?
We'll put some dates in there after 4:30.
Okay.
I know we got some town chairman too, so we'll look at, to make sure we don't double up on those dates for you as well. So we'll take a look at those too, Michael, to make sure.
Usually I can make it back. We don't have early meetings, usually it's 7. Sometimes we have a meeting at 5:30. And it hasn't happened for a long time. So.
And if I know about it far enough ahead of time, 4 o'clock works
Right.
usually.
Yeah, exactly. Same here.
Okay.
So, okay, Highway Department amendment.
CUP amendment, this came before the committee back in January. Several committee members might recall at our highway conference, the federal government announced bill funding, which came down to the DOT for bill funding. And basically what we did was we put a couple of our projects, all 3 of our projects, on hold for this year with the auspices that we might get some federal/state funding to fund those projects. We're extremely hopeful that we'd be able to get that. We applied for 4 different pots of money. And of course, we were 0 for 4 on those. We had a highway conference up in the Dells again this past week, and we found out why we weren't one of those that were selected. The reason is not great, and the transportation secretary apologized for the methodology as they went through and assured they wouldn't do it again. So for what was called Stp Rural Funding, again, we were the only 2 projects in southeastern Wisconsin district. The DOT is split up into 5 different districts statewide, southeast, southwest, northeast, north central, northwest, right? So kind of think about, the state of Wisconsin splitting up in 5 different ways. Southeastern Wisconsin district got 0 project. Northeast got 0 project. North Central got 0 projects. So think Stevens Point, Wausau got 0 projects. The Northeast district, again, Fond du Lac, Green Bay, got 1 project. Southwest got 8 projects, and then Northwest got 5 projects. So a lot of the projects were all skewed to the west half of the state, if you will, or west third of the state. It was determined that, how they did it was central office called the district, says, do you think you can deliver this project on time? If the district said yes, they got projects. If the district said no, they didn't get projects. And so Southeastern district said, no, we got enough projects going on, so we're not gonna be able to handle 1 more project in our district, because again, we're going through the federal and state funding process and bidding process. So it turns out that our district and another district didn't get any projects, and 1 district got 1 project, because I said that's all they could handle. So that was extremely disappointing to hear at that conference. And I heard it since that, again, in my DOT contracts in Southeastern District, that's what indeed did happen. So again, the secretary said they're going to go through and do it their old methodology way, to go back to and rank the projects and stuff like that. So extremely disappointing that we did not get a $3.5 million funding opportunity. So what we did was we turned around and resubmitted that project right in there again. And we certainly let them know our politely our displeasure about the way that they actually funded those projects. Again, that was the Stp Rural project. Again, that was Highway M and Highway E. And again, so we resubmitted Highway M, but knowing that since we didn't get any projects, that we're not going to get 2 projects the next cycle for sure. So we decided to go ahead and bid out Highway E. That's a paving project south of the village of Slinger. It's underway right now, being pulverized. And our Highway M, the east-west leg of that, which is Pioneer Road, we were one of 200 applicants. That again was a different pot of money, STP local. And we're on 200 applicants and talking to the highway commissioners at the conference that we were not near the top of that list. And so it didn't make sense to delay that project in a year. We were able to split that project up into 2 different projects. Hopefully, again, that we get funding for that north-south leg of Osaki Road in 2023. But looking at bidding out the east-west leg of Pioneer Road. Again, there's a portion of the city of Mequon in between there, so you don't get that economy of scale because we're doing 1 project first and 1 project separate second anyway. It also helps us with delaying the project. Imagine if they rip up 1 area and then leave to go rip up the other area, they put gravel down in this direction and gravel there. So it really inconveniences the public that's using those roadways a lot longer if we did it one project, there's a landscaping business that didn't want to do that. So we were going to separate them up anyway, but it just made sense to go ahead and bid those out now. We also applied for Stp Urban Funding for that M. Wasaki Road. We did not again. The urbanized area, which is again Milwaukee, City of Milwaukee, County of Milwaukee, about 2/3 of Waukesha, and then the southern half of the Germantown and Richfield, and then Walzaki County. They got about $9 million, and about 8.7 of that went to the City of Milwaukee. Not a big shock. And then the other 200,000 went to St. Francis, and they're very happy to get that. We were the second to last project on that list as well, so we were not even close to the funding on that. So, but that's just to give you an update. Again, it's not really, we didn't really amend the CAP. We didn't change any numbers. We didn't really, add or subtract anything. It was just my language that I put on that agenda last. We thought it'd be nice to have the same wording on the same agenda. So again, we're not really amending the CAP. We're just kind of letting you know what our bidding project's out.
Okay, any questions? Jeff?
That north-south part of M then, if we were successful in getting a grant, would that be done next year?
When you apply for these grants, you can put in what year you want to do them. We put in 2023 that we want to do them, and hopefully because it's quote unquote shovel ready, they recognize that and do that. But you're really at the whims of the DOT. It could be anywhere from 2023 to 2027. And what we would do is if they push it out to, let's say, 26 or something like that, we would come back to you and say, well, do you want to take the $3.5 million and wait a couple of years, or do it? And my guess, you would say, yes, we would take the $3.5 million and wait a couple of years, 3 years to do it. That would be my recommendation anyway. But you're really at the whims. It's just like the bridge program. They have a certain amount of money they can use every year, and they say, yep, this pot's full, so we're going to move you to the next year. And that pot's full, they move you to the next year. It's very much like their bridge program. They basically dictate to you when the project will happen. It's very much exactly like what happened on our Highway P project. We took money for our Highway P project, and they're doing it the same year they're doing the Highway 60 project. And so we could turn down the money and change our year, or buck up and say, yeah, it's going to be a rough year in 2024 for the Village of Jackson. Sorry, Village of Jackson.
We'll deal with it.
It'll be good in 2025.
There you go.
So
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to action items. Share ride taxi cross-country MOU. I'll need a motion and a second for this.
I'll make that motion.
Motion, second. Anybody?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Hartwig, second by Supervisor Schwab. And we start the discussion.
So if you know and Joyce, you're certainly to answer any specific questions, and there's a lot of data I know in your report, and we're not going to go into data unless you ask specific questions. But so the counties, because they didn't want to merge, we decided, well, how about doing a pilot program? I believe that came from Ozaki County. How about merging and crossing county lines, right? The old system was, we had one transfer point for the whole county in Newburgh. Again, they would call up Washington County, get transferred, drive their trip wherever they're in the county to Newburgh. They have to call Ozaki County, get picked up in Newburgh, go to Ozaki County, and go back and forth, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense for those that live in Germantown or Jackson. I'm sure the service level there was probably pretty poor because they had to drive away Newburgh and back. So how about we just cross the county lines? The problem you have with that, though, is that you can't pick a rider up. Washington County can't pick a rider up in Ozaki County because that's duplicating a federal service. So what it means is we can drop somebody off in Ozaki County. We cannot pick them back up in Ozaki County for the most part, unless they're really close to the line. And so what it means is you're deadheading or basically not getting paid for that ride back to Washington County. That tax has got to come back to Washington County. And so we tried the program, and I think it was very successful. I think it could get more successful as more people hear about it and utilize that service. But we're looking to today, is that something you want to continue to do that, again, with our software systems being the same in both counties. And again, the dispatcher hopefully get better at doing those routes and getting those better. It's really coming down to learning the software and utilizing the software, I think, on their end.
Yeah, there's some things.
Yeah, there's some things
Yes.
they can do better. And so we're still continuing to work through those and hopefully get to that one call stop shop eventually. down the road. But it really comes down to the policy question of, do you want to continue that cross-county, knowing that we have to pay out of county dollars? What's the dollar amount, 16,000?
There's a difference in the amount.
That's right.
Right, but Ozaki County has not requested any of that change at this time.
So,
But yeah,
but the cost.
the difference in cost between the counties, the difference in the burden is 16,000.
The overall burden is like 30. So again, it's got about $16,000 to $17,000 of cost. And that little spreadsheet there.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, so the annual cost, which was calculated using the difference between the percentage drivers and percent miles that we have used up with this program, is estimated to be at 17,900 for Washington County, and that's adjusted.
So I guess we take any questions. I mean, I think it's a nice service. You'll see a breakdown of who's actually utilizing that service as well and what they're utilizing that service for. You can see right now it's heavy into Newburgh. About 44% to the Lawrence manufacturing site.
Okay, oh, yeah, so that piece I do have to.
Oh, and then,
Right, the destinations by reason of travel. This was one of those ports that I had to create for both counties, and that chunk is actually the Ozaki County. So I did not get that piece updated for Washington County. I put it in because I wanted to explain the difference. Ozaki County is doing twice the number of rides that Washington County is, because Ozaki County is picking up the people who are just a mile over or under into Washington County and bringing them back. And that it happens to be that 44% for the Newburgh. The Newburgh factor is what's really making the difference between the number of rides for Ozaki County versus Washington County. But yeah, so the destinations that they're going to in Ozaki County, it's Mequon and Grafton and Cedarburg. Those are top destinations. So overall, I mean, Grafton's a really popular place, which it makes sense. These are the major medical facilities. And employment continues to be the top reason that people are traveling. And there are a lot of disabled employment trips that we're doing. So ambulatory adults who are disabled and traveling for employment, that's the main group that we're serving with this service.
And it's something that we did just to, like Scott said, to make this service easier for people to go from one county to the next without having to stop at Newburgh. It was just simpler. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. The annual adjusted cost, is that calculated just on Washington counties? Or is there a total and it's split, or how'd you come up?
Yeah, because each county is still separate, all of our finances are separate, so that's the Washington County cost. So it was based on we used the cost per mile pre-pilot, and then looked at the ridership, and then that's the adjusted cost, since we have to include inflation and everything at this point.
How does that compare to Ozaki's cost? Do you know that?
It is, the difference between here and there is another 16,000. So their cost is about 32.
But they're doing a lot more rides.
Yeah, they're doing twice as many rides, right?
Twice as many rides.
Again, it's Washington County residents that they're picking up that are just over the border, living in Newburgh or, technically West Bend, or is it the area of Cedarburg that's in Washington County, Cedarburg, Jackson area. So they're picking up those people instead of sending someone out from West Bend in Washington County to go into Ozaki for those rides. And we do the same thing. We will go 1 mile over into Ozaki County and have a few of those, but it's a lot less.
So does that annual cost take into consideration the increased ridership then, that they have those extra rides, they're able to do that then? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, so it's looking at the rides. Yeah, so this is the overall cost. And now this doesn't include, this is not the cost to the county either. This is, we take off the fare rate from there still, and then, we have our grant funding. So this program is still eligible for all of our regular operations grants that we receive from the state and the federal government.
Any other questions? Mike?
I think I'm a little more confused than I was before. So the 17,970 is not the true cost because some grants will still be applied to reduce that amount? Is that, or did I understand that incorrectly?
No, you understood that.
Okay.
So usually with all of our operations, and so this is lumped into the operations of the shared ride taxi. This is, when we're looking at the cost, this is the estimated cost, not broken down by the actual rides. So all of our shared ride taxi operations we usually have about a quarter of the cost is paid by fares, a quarter is paid by the county, and then 50% is state and federal grant funding. So if you wanted to estimate what's the actual cost to the county, it's about a quarter.
Got it. And then the second question is when I'm looking at the number of rides, is there an easy way to look at it and say, oh, well, the extra cost is 50 cents per ride or per person using the service? Is there an easy way to look at that, or isn't that the right way to kind of think about it?
So, okay, so I'm trying to follow that. So, we do have that for each of the rides, there's a $5.75 surcharge is added on to help cover the deadhead cost coming back. And, again, that's just a portion of the actual cost to run a shared ride taxi, which is usually about $25 per ride.
Okay.
So I think I had some updated numbers on it, but yeah, so that's.
Right, and if I could just interject here, so if you look at the bottom of the second, the third page, it shows that in March through May, so March, April, May, so 3 months, they had 143 rides coming to ours. We had 30 going into theirs, so 173 in 3 months. So you take that out and multiply it by 4. I'm not gonna do that in my head.
Got it.
You divide that by the $4,000 it costs, you get the cost per ride.
Got it.
Like certainly pull a calculator out to get a rough number, but 173 times 4 by roughly 4,000. 17 cents. Is that right? No, it'd be the other way, 4,000 divided by the.
Yeah. Probably wasn't a good question to ask.
I think they had charts on this at one time that showed the costs, right? How much it costs to give somebody a ride and what we charge them and the difference. Wasn't that posted at one time? I thought we reviewed that. Yeah, in the transit reports.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's.
I'll withdraw the question because it was more curiosity than.
Yeah, that's getting, digging way into the guts of things, but I don't know, Scott, did you have a copy of that report or do you have a copy of it? Something that we could.
Shared right for the Commuter Express, we kept that.
Commuter Express,
But I believe
okay.
that last month or the month before, we had it broken down by the shared ride taxi too, but it is about $5.78.
Okay.
So let's say $6 that it costs the county again, a quarter of the amount.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, we can take a vote on this. And does this go to the board then?
No,
we vote on it?
what you're doing is you're approving the MOU. That means we would enter under a memorandum of understanding with Ozaki County. So after today, the county executive, then you're basically authorizing the county executive to get an agreement with Ozaki County.
Okay.
And then we would finalize details with them, and if the county executive agrees, the wording on it is appropriate, and our county attorney certainly will sign it. If he doesn't agree that, he would turn it down. So this is kind of the last stop.
Okay.
I have a question to you.
Doug?
Maybe I missed it. What is the length of the MOU?
That's one thing that was discussed at Ozaki County today.
Right, so a couple things that were discussed there this morning, that would be, with revisions. The first is removing pilot from all of it, so it becomes just an ongoing program that gets renewed on a yearly basis. So the new MOU would last a year, and either county could pull out, with if there's, you'd have to give 90 days notice before the end of the term if you don't want to renew it the next year. And otherwise it would automatically renew.
So in essence, every year we would look at it here and say, yeah, we want to keep going.
Yep.
Or not, and we could shut it down if we felt the need.
So it would, it'd be like a September discussion.
My guess would be, it would be at your budget time. That September type of year when you said, do you want to keep funding this or not?
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing no further questions, we can take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. Good to go. Next meeting date, Thursday, July 25th at 4 PM. Meeting's adjourned.